You work hard. You save up. You buy a home. You think that because your name is on the deed, it belongs to you. But imagine a world where the house you live in, the bed you sleep in, and even the job that pays for it all aren't actually controlled by people. They are controlled by a mathematical formula designed to extract wealth. Welcome to the new American reality. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is an industry sitting on over $12 trillion in assets. To put that in perspective, that is an economy larger than the GDP of Germany and Japan combined. It is a massive shadow banking system that operates largely in the dark. And chances are, you don't even know the names of the firms pulling the strings. For decades, the deal was simple. We called it the American dream. If you worked hard, you could afford a home, send your kids to college, and retire with dignity. The economy was a ladder, and if you climbed it, you were rewarded. It was a stable, upward line. But lately, that line has flatlined. While productivity has gone up, your wages have stayed the same. Meanwhile, the cost of housing, healthcare, and groceries has skyrocketed. You feel like you're running on a treadmill just to stay in the same place. So, where did all that money go? It didn't disappear. It was transferred. Enter the vampire squid of the financial world, private equity. Firms like Blackstone, KKR, and Carlyle. Unlike public companies like Apple or Tesla, these firms operate in the shadows. They don't answer to the public stock market, they answer only to their investors. And they are everywhere. You might rent an apartment owned by them. You might grab coffee at a chain they control. Even the ambulance that picks you up in an emergency could be owned by a private equity firm. They have quietly bought up Main Street piece by piece. But the real question is, how do they afford to buy the world? They use a weapon called the leveraged buyout, or LBO. It sounds complicated, but it's essentially a magic trick. It allows these firms to buy massive companies without using much of their own money. It is the financial equivalent of Grand Theft Auto, but completely legal. Here is the analogy. Imagine I break into your house, steal your credit card, and use your card to buy your house from you. I now own the deed to the house, but you are left stuck paying the credit card bill. That, in a nutshell, is a leveraged buyout. When a private equity firm takes over a company, step one is always efficiency. In corporate speak, this usually means firing people. They slash staff, cut benefits, and reduce service quality to make the balance sheet look better immediately. But cutting costs is just the appetizer for the real feast. Step 2 is asset stripping. Let's say the company owns its own headquarters. The PE firm will sell that land and building for quick cash to pay themselves, and then force the company to rent back the building they used to own. They literally sell the floor from under the workers' feet. At this point, the company is struggling. It has to pay interest on the massive debt used to buy it, and now it has to pay rent on its own building. You'd think the private equity firm would be worried about their investment failing, right? Wrong. Because even if the company bleeds to death, the vampire squid still eats. Step 3 involves management fees. The PE firm charges the company they own millions of dollars a year for consulting services. Essentially, the company is forced to pay the people who loaded it with debt for the privilege of being loaded with debt. Even if the company is losing money, these fees must be paid first. But step 4 is the most predatory of all, the dividend recap. The PE firm forces the company to take out another massive loan. But instead of using that money to innovate or expand, the cash is immediately handed over to the PE firm as a dividend. They are literally maxing out the company's credit card to pay themselves a bonus. Now the company is drowning in debt with zero cash reserves. To survive, they have to cut the only thing left, the workers. Wages are frozen, benefits are slashed, and thousands are fired. The remaining employees are forced to do the work of 3 people for the pay of 1. It creates a miserable, broken workplace. This isn't theoretical. Look at Toys R Us. They didn't go bankrupt because people stopped buying toys. They were actually profitable. They went bankrupt because private equity owners loaded them with $5 billion in debt. The toy store had to pay $400 million a year just in interest payments alone until it finally collapsed. This is the core of the business model. It is not about creation, it is about extraction. They extract the value, the assets, and the cash, leaving behind a hollow shell. If the company survives, great. If it dies, the PE firm has likely already made their profit. Heads they win, tails you lose. You might be thinking, well, I don't work for a PE-owned company, so I'm safe. You're not, because after they ran out of companies to buy, they started buying something else. They started buying your neighborhood. This brings us to the most personal theft of the American dream, housing. Following the 2008 crash, firms like Blackstone began buying up single-family homes by the thousands. They weren't buying them to flip them, they were buying them to corner the market. Regular families trying to buy their first home found themselves outbid by multi-billion-dollar corporations making all-cash offers. Once they own the neighborhood, they become the landlord from hell. Rents are jacked up aggressively. Maintenance requests go unanswered because fixing your leaky roof hurts their quarterly profits. They have automated the eviction process, turning the basic human need for shelter into a cold, high-yield asset class. But it gets darker. Private equity has moved into healthcare. They've bought up nursing homes and emergency rooms. The playbook is the same. Cut staff to boost profits. Research shows that when a nursing home is bought by PE, patient mortality rates increase. Grandma isn't getting care anymore. She's effectively become a line item on a spreadsheet. You rush to an emergency room covered by your insurance, but days later you get a bill for thousands of dollars. Why? Because the doctor who treated you works for a staffing firm owned by private equity, and they don't accept your insurance. This practice, known as surprise billing, was turned into an industrial-scale revenue stream by these firms. Even your pets aren't safe. Private equity has quietly consolidated the veterinary industry, buying up independent clinics across the country. They know that when your dog is sick, you will pay anything to save it. They are betting on your love to drive their profit margins. It is emotional extortion. Closed toy stores. Unaffordable homes, understaffed nursing homes, bankrupt retailers. These aren't isolated incidents. They are symptoms of the same disease. We are living in a system where the basic building blocks of a functioning society have been turned into financial instruments for the ultra-wealthy. This is the greatest transfer of wealth in history. It is a siphon, sussing capital from the working class and the middle class and channeling it directly to the top 1%. It is not creating value. It is harvesting value that already exists. And the craziest part? It is all perfectly legal. Why hasn't the government stopped this? Because private equity firms are some of the biggest political donors in Washington. They spend millions lobbying to ensure that the laws stay in their favor. They don't just buy companies, they buy influence. They write the rules of the game they are playing. Take the carried interest loophole. It allows billionaire fund managers to pay a lower tax rate on their income than a teacher or a firefighter. They claim their income is investment profit, not salary, saving them billions in taxes every year. It is a rigged system, plain and simple. Here is the cruelest irony of all. Where do private equity firms get their money? A huge chunk comes from pension funds. The retirement savings of teachers, police officers, and factory workers are being used to fund the very firms that are destroying their jobs and driving up their cost of living. We are funding our own destruction. This is the story of the financialization of the American economy. We stopped making things and started making money from money. We prioritized short-term profits over long-term stability. And in the process, we allowed a shadow banking system to steal the foundation of the American dream. The American dream isn't dead, but it has been privatized. It has been packaged, leveraged, and sold off to the highest bidder. If we want to reclaim it, the first step is understanding who actually owns it, because you can't fight an enemy you can't see. But believe it or not, private equity firms aren't even the biggest fish in the ocean. There are two companies that own even more of the world than they do. They own the banks, the media, and maybe even the private equity firms themselves. Who are they? Click this video right here to find out.